Hi everyone, welcome back to the Property Finance Podcast, and today I want to talk about equity versus cash flow. So this isn't really a finance-related podcast in the sense of this is just talking about strategies and where your focus should be. And this is all personal opinion, this isn't financial advice or anything like that. This is just off the back of a question that someone asked me where they basically laid out their scenario and they said, look, I've got X amount in the bank, but I've decided to focus on building my cash flow before I build up my equity. And it got me thinking, well, actually, which one is the best one? So for me personally, I think it is key that you need to build up that cash flow first. I think without building up that cash flow, you are never going to get to the point where you can build up the equity. Because the reason why you need that cash flow, and that could be through things like rent to rent, it could be through things like single buy to lets, it could be serviced accommodation, could be lease options, could be deal sourcing, whatever it may be. But those little chunks of cash coming in on a regular basis, they're always going to help. And it's not passive income. I hate the fact that it's called passive income because it's not passive. You put so much work into it. Even on a single buy to let, the amount of work you have to put in does not make it passive. But having those payments coming in every month and building up a pool which then allows you to focus on equity is key. And what I say by focusing on equity is I'm talking about doing land developments, commercial conversions, where you can then essentially refinance and hold those assets. So you might go and do a 10-unit development and retain 5 of them. That's about building a long-term asset and equity within those assets. Why I think you need to build up that cash flow is because a lot of people forget that in the process of then going and doing these developments, these large-scale deals, there's quite a lot of money to pay up front. And it's things like stamp duty, VAT, quantity surveyor fees, valuation fees, you've got legal fees. All of these fees come before you even get started in the deal. And the gentleman I was speaking to, he said, look, I've got X amount of money, but I've lost 30 grand on doing deals where they've then fallen through. Because the problem you have is you invest 10, 20 grand of your money into a deal on legal fees, valuation fees, QS fees. And if that falls through, that money is unrecoverable. It just goes, it disappears. And it's almost the equivalent of taking 20 grand, putting it in a bag, taking it outside and setting fire to it. It really is as simple as that. So by building up these cash flowing assets, and this is why I think cash flow is absolutely key, is because you need to be able to replenish that 10, 20 grand fund. So what I would say to someone is if they're getting started out is getting into something like rent to rent, deal sourcing, lease options, those kind of things where you've got those chunks of money coming in. Get those. That then goes into an account. So you imagine this account sits in the middle. 10, 20 grand, whatever, goes into this account. That is then your pot to enable you to go and do the deals for building up equity. And that's that fund that then allows you to go and pay for legal fees, valuation fees, QS fees, to then be able to do the bigger deals. It's that money that enables you to do the bigger stuff. And the thing is, if you didn't have this cash flow here, let's say I just had 20 grand in the account from working the day job. You've then got 20 grand in this account. If I go and spend that 20 grand on one deal, I then can't replenish that without going to work for another year, 2 years, and again, building that savings pot. And that's the same for people who sort of purchase buy-to-lets, for example. You build up 20 grand from your day job, you go and put it into a buy-to-let at, say, 20% on a 100 grand property. You then buy that 100 grand property. You then start again. You build that 20 grand. You then put it into there. And it's by building this cash flow here, you become unreliant on your day-to-day income. You then have a completely separate set of cash coming in, which then goes into this pot, like I said, which you can then use to do the bigger stuff. So in my opinion, cash flow is certainly the way to build first and then focus on equity. I think too many people get focused on building something to obviously hand over to their kids or put in the will, inheritance, all that kind of thing. I think that becomes a dangerous thing to do because it really is or can be one and done. By building up the cash flow, it then enables that cash to come into this pot in the middle, which then enables you to just keep going. So building that cash flow is key. It just takes so much risk out, so much stress out. But yeah, thought I'd hop on, do a really quick episode about it because it was just a question that came out of a little WhatsApp group that we were in the other day. And I thought, you know what, that actually makes quite a good episode. So yeah, for the gent that raised the question, there you go. This was recorded just for you. So yeah, hopefully that's been really helpful. And yeah, I'll catch you on the next one.